Hi there, welcome to Homekeepers. Come right on in. So glad to be here today. So glad you found us. If you didn't know we existed and didn't know that we are here, I'm glad to be with you, whether you've watched the program for a long time or this is your first time. Just welcome, come right on in. And we like to bring topics to you that will be informative and helpful and just a broad spectrum of things that come from this program. And thank you for your kind letters and remarks and emails and so forth that kind of make us feel like we're on the right track. I have a return guest today. In fact, I asked him when he was here, because he lives in Arkansas, I asked him to stay and let me tape another interview with him. His name is Chris Shelton, and he is a pastor. He has served in the armed forces, and for 10 years he was an investigative detective in the area of abused children. And I just asked him, just stay and talk about that, just some of the things that you need to know, very educational, and also we need to be aware. There's so much abuse, and if you can look around, maybe children even in your church or neighborhood, a lot of times there's signals given out there that there's some abuse going on. And Chris wrote this book. I love the title. It's Okay, You're With My Father. And this was a true story where they were out dealing with a youngster they were trying to bring in. And he was afraid because I think that people had been, that he had been in some trouble. And Mr. Shelton's son said, "It's okay, you're with my father." Isn't that a sermon? And so I recommend this book. We will recommend it throughout the interview. And I just want you to take notice, I think, a very, very, very important conversation that we had right here on Homekeepers. And I'm going to join Stephanie. I'm going to surprise you when we get over there, okay? Stay tuned. Don't miss this one. But before I do, we are again today offering you this petite cross bracelet. And according to Martha Brangenberg, who works a lot with gifts, said this is really popular right now. It's very small, it's lightweight, and will go with anything you want to put it with, or your sports, or if you're dressed up, whatever. You can have it for that gift of at least $15 to the program. If you like to use your credit card or a debit card or whatever kind of card, just call 1-800-229-0059 and we'll get it out to you. And you have a choice here. It's either gold or silver. And if you don't tell us, we'll just choose for you, okay? And if you don't use a credit card, just contact us at Homekeepers, Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida 33758, and we'll get it out to you. And you got one on too.
Yes, I have the gold.
The gold.
You have the silver.
They're pretty, they're so light.
I love it. Mm-hmm. It's very feminine.
Now we're going to make an 8-can taco soup. And this is something, because she's helping all of us to have a better organized life. This is something you can have your shelf all the time.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you need to do something quicko, this is the recipe. This is one, if you keep these things, you don't have to run out to the store.
Yep.
And we also, on the last program we made this marvelous cheesy bread, and we decided to hold it over to go with this. So this is kind of a double whammy. Now that's a can of just chicken broth.
Yep.
It's your foundation. Everything here comes in a can except the taco mix.
Yep, and then we have
black beans. Drain and strain those. And same with the pintos. And then they tell you to drain the diced tomatoes, but we have had a meeting. And that includes Stephanie and Susan and I have said, no, we're not going to drain those. There's too much flavor in there.
Yep, we have.
That's the enchilada sauce, which is something I'd never heard of. It's mild green, and I thought it would be too hot for me, but I tasted it. I kind of liked it.
Yeah, it's got a
can of corn, drained, not strained. That's cream of chicken, and a can of just a can of canned chicken.
Yeah. Or if you're doing the make-ahead meat, you can always have chicken made up. You know that you frozen and that you shredded and frozen. Get that out of the freezer, and then you can have fresh chicken.
And you keep this keep this stuff on your shelf, and you've got a meal with just everything in it. I have found that canned chicken just tastes pretty good, actually.
It is good. And you could put a little sour cream and cheese on top of this, have some tortilla chips.
And it is beautiful.
Look, it is pretty. I turned it on high, so it'll just be...
Also, it suggests tortillas, but I thought, let's try it with some real hearty bread.
You can't go wrong with that bread because it was delicious.
So we will taste it, but please know that it's got to hang out a little bit, but you can only imagine how great it is with all those flavors. So beautiful. It's everything you need right there.
Yep, that's a pretty soup.
Have you ever fixed anything like that before?
Oh, yeah.
Have you?
I have another one that you use refried beans in. It's black beans, refried beans, chicken broth, the chicken.
You kind of
salsa. And salsa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just kind of do your own thing.
You made it on here a long time ago before I was ever on the show.
This,
you made it.
We're just going to taste because you know it's not done. You know that. And there you go. But I think we got lunch for some nice people around here today.
Yeah.
That's good. It's not too hot for me. Okay, girl.
That's good.
And then, do you ever do that?
Oh, yeah.
That is so...
I'm just going to have a
such bad manners.
Because I'm being bad, bad, bad.
Oh, my.
Oh,
They call that sopping. Oh, my.
Oh.
We'll send both of these if you order them. Both of them. But stay with me. I want you to meet Chris if you didn't last time he was here. Very interesting interview. Stay with me. Recipes coming up. Next.
If you would like a copy of today's recipe, please send your request along with a gift of $5 or more to Homekeepers, P.O. Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida 33758.
All right, thanks for hanging around.
Oh, thank you for having me.
There's just so much much more I want to deal with in your book. It's Okay, You're With My Father. And you state in here that you've seen more mothers abandoning their children.
Yeah, we're seeing more of that today, literally, where mothers are abandoning their children and going on. It's a breakdown in society.
So what, they find a boyfriend or something?
The children become inconvenient and they just leave them, move on.
Well, the Bible says that in the last days, to be without natural affection. And that has been explained as homosexuality because that's not natural affection. And but I think it's this type of thing too, because there's nothing more natural than a mother loving a child.
It's a selfishness.
Yeah, you touch my kid.
Yeah, well,
you know.
Praise God. Matter of fact, we had a case where there was a grandmother that caught the grandfather with one of the children. She grabbed a shovel and took after him with a shovel. We were just like, go granny.
That's so natural. That's and sometimes if a father has been molesting a child, but the child fights to keep the father, you know, if the police get involved. And one of them you quoted as saying, the little girl said, Daddy, you said you wouldn't do it anymore. But they still don't want the dad to leave the home.
No, children love their parents no matter what. Even if they've been abused, it's still natural for them to love their parents and want to be accepted by their parents.
Now, how long were you an investigator on these child abuse cases?
10 years.
I doubt if you could be shocked, huh?
I
hope not.
I think I don't know too much I could have seen that I haven't seen. And you know, in the book, I mentioned a number of cases that I was involved in. I mean, it wasn't all of them. They were just cases that I could turn around with a call to the church because we have to be doing something. And this is a position where the church can get in and make such a difference. You know, it's unfortunate. It's crazy. But, you know, our government's trying to keep the church out of everything. When if the church would do what they should be doing, the way they should be doing it, we should be the answer to all these problems. And I want to see the church rise up and not in a hateful way, but we need to do it in a loving way, and we need to do it in a positive way, and we need to start making a difference.
I'm ready to do it in a forceful way myself.
Well, you strong way. Now, there's a difference.
Yeah,
You need to do it strong. But and it's the thing. You can only really love from a position of strength.
all they have to do is look at the statistics, like Chuck Colson's prison ministry. See the results of that. I mean, prisoners who've gotten involved in that, the percentage that return to prison, so small. The government, they're always wanting to look at statistics. I think if you really teach teens to be abstinent and that kind of thing, look at the statistics, for heaven's sakes. But there's a hostility, there's a hatred toward the church.
There is.
And it's being put on the military. And I have said I would not want to be in a military situation where the upper echelon hates God. And there's no way I would ever say anything against our men and women in uniform. But there is an effort to remove God from anything to do with the military. So it's a real hostility.
Well, when you see that they burned Bibles that were sent to be used as witnessing tools because they didn't want to offend the other country, I'm like, if you don't want us here, we'll leave. I mean, but if you're going to send me somewhere, I'm going with my Bible. I mean, matter of fact, I was saved because of a Gideon Bible that was given to me when I joined the Army.
God bless the Gideons. I've given money to them before.
So, yeah, no, really. I mean, I started reading that Bible, and we led a lot of people to the Lord. And it's amazing to me that we've gone from a point where God was honored. I was baptized by an Army chaplain
there you go.
In the ocean. And today they're wanting to keep God out. But they're doing it in the state. They're doing it in the federal government.
Yeah, I led you off
Sorry.
topic here. You had a situation, he investigated a situation where a stepfather had sold the stepdaughter in a drug deal. Is it right? He didn't have any money, so he said, here, you can rape this child.
He took his 11-year-old stepdaughter with him to buy drugs, and he didn't have any money, and the drug dealer wouldn't give him any credit. But the drug dealer looked at the girl and said, if you let me have sex with her, I'll let you have the drugs. And so her first sexual experience was being raped by an inner-city drug dealer at 11 years old because stepdaddy couldn't afford the drugs.
And there were times, and there'd have to be demon power around these things, that you sensed that demon power and you prayed against it. I like your book, the way you always bring in Jesus into these situations where really he's the only answer.
It's absolutely demonic. I mean, there's a point where you couldn't even think of this stuff on your own. It has to be demonic for some of what I've seen. And we're seeing a real rise today in the occult. And in fact, I have a case in there I mentioned where we actually dealt with a vampire. And, contrary to what they say on the movies, they don't sparkle, they're nasty. But we had a guy that molested a young girl, and he was drinking human blood and writing on the walls in blood and telling women if they had his child.
What kind of a setting is that in? Are they outside in the woods, or where do they operate?
We actually are aware of a witch's coven in a county near mine, and we can't touch the coven. If they're out there on their own property dancing naked under the moon doing their own thing, that's their business. Now, when they bring children into it, we can get involved, and we have. And I know they've tried to fight that on a freedom of religion issue. I don't know where that went. My job was just take care of the children when I was there. But we're seeing a lot of young people drawn into that because of the stuff that's on TV. I mean, there's one of those shows called The Charmed Ones, where you got three attractive women, and they're powerful, and they have money, and when you have young people that are raised in a broken home and they feel powerless, they're drawn to that. And I blame the church because, if people saw the real love of Christ in the church and they saw the real power in the church, they'd be drawn to that. And I felt the Holy Spirit real strong when I was sharing that.
Well, that's true of these really murderous gangs in cities, is that young people have almost a sense of family when we're in the gang.
There's a sense of belonging and importance, and but again, when people have a chance to see the real Jesus, not the phony baloney religiosity stuff, but the real Jesus, then they're drawn to that. And young people today they're desperate for genuineness. They're tired of the phony baloney. They want a genuineness, and we need to reach out to them in that New Testament kind of genuineness. You
had a case where a mother protected her boyfriend at all costs. These are situations that I can't comprehend at all, where a mother would sacrifice a child for a boyfriend. And whoever I'm talking to out there, if you're living with someone, you're not married to them, in the first place, if you do marry, the chances of the marriage lasting are very low statistically. But also, you better be careful who you have around your children. And this one was so offensive that you walked around the courthouse and prayed and felt that you felt angels.
Oh, yeah.
That the Lord answered your prayer.
Absolutely.
What happened on that case?
That was the one where we were dealing with the vampire, and I'm sure there was heavy occult activity going on there. There was a coven involved, and when this particular, and this is amazing, but this particular individual had already been out on parole for aggravated assault and robbery, and then he had offended on this little girl. Well, we were very concerned that if the only thing protecting that little girl, was getting him back in prison, we wanted his parole revoked. And so we had a parole revocation hearing, which is normally a 20-minute in and out. And this thing went on for 6 hours. It was the longest one that's ever in the state. People were talking about it across the state. We knew the case, but we had went in there unprepared in that we weren't prayed up. And they were. And you actually felt it was, you could sense the demonic battle going on. Mm-hmm. And we prevailed, and he went back to prison, thankfully. But when it came time for the trial, I had not forgotten that. And this time I was determined I'd be prepared spiritually as well. And I got hold of the chief deputy, and we went and we prayed all around the inside of the court and the outside of the court. And we prayed for everybody we could think of. And when we came back into the court, it was awesome. It was
different atmosphere.
Oh, you could just, like an outline, you could just see the presence of angels. I mean, they were at the outer doors and the inner doors and the corners, and and they were
protecting a child.
They were protecting a child, and the thing was that case went. What should have been a long case went like 20 minutes, like the parole hearing should have went, and it was because we were prayed up for that one.
If you just tuned in, I'm talking to Chris Shelton, and the book is "It's Okay, You're With My Father," and the story of that title, which is really beautiful, is in the book. I want to put his website up. It is up. And we'll leave it up for the rest of the program because you can get the book through that. Amazon and all those places too?
It's Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's available through most major bookstores. You might have to order it initially, until they're really getting a lot of calls for it. But there's links on our website.
Okay. Got to move along. I could talk to you for a long time.
Thank you.
Okay, you confronted role-playing games and Ouija boards, and parents need to be very vigilant with that kind of activity, right?
Absolutely. Those things are sold in the store like they're toys, and they're not. They're legitimate occult tools. And I've been in homes where I've seen a number of that. I actually had a case, and I mentioned this one in there briefly, but I got called out because a mother was hearing voices, and they were telling her to kill her children. And when I'd gotten to the home, I found out that she was very heavily into all this occult games and things like that, and it gotten into her mind. And thank God we got called out before she actually did do something to her children.
Yeah, I always go back to the Garden of Eden, where God gave Adam and Eve perfect life. You want a perfect life, you go back there. And he said, but not this tree, not this one. And I think he was saying, don't even get curious about it. Don't think about it. You don't go there. You don't go to Ouija boards. You don't start these stupid role-playing games. It seems like people could find something a whole lot better to do with their time. Get the kids outside kicking the can, or
it goes back
a library book.
It goes back to the breakdown of the family.
Yeah, it
Again,
does.
if you don't have the father in there, and if you don't have the church in there, we're losing these people. They're being raised by Jerry Springer and MTV Spring Break instead of by godly fathers.
Mm-hmm. And if you just tuned in, this gentleman has been an investigative detective for child abuse cases for 10 years in the state of Arkansas, the Bible Belt, and 100 cases per year. That's an awful lot.
Yeah, I should stress, it's not just Arkansas. I mean, Arkansas is a great place to live. This is a national problem.
Yeah.
And I believe it's due to the breakdown of families.
It's just a composite of the United States.
Breakdown of families.
All right, I don't want to run out of time with you this time. 11-year-old girl pregnant.
That was the youngest pregnancy I dealt with. We had an 11-year-old that was pregnant. And I remember her telling me, she said, I should be trying out for the junior varsity. Instead, I'm going to be a mother.
Did she carry the child to term?
She did carry the child to term.
11 years old?
11 years old.
Oh. And where'd the guy go?
Well, he really loved her, but he didn't want to go to prison, so he took off.
Yeah, that was rape. Okay.
Oh, it was rape. It was.
And then there was one where a guy was real smart and maybe the same one, threw the condom out the window.
No, that was a different case. Actually, I kind of got my first award in the state for that case, and that was where being a former counterintelligence agent really paid off. We had a gentleman that he had a thing. He'd pick up girls and he would take them out and give them a
Gentleman.
beer. I'm sorry, I use that very loosely.
Scumbag.
Yeah, well, he was a dirtbag. He went to prison. But he had taken this girl out and had raped her. And he'd raped her with a condom on. And, initially he denied even doing it, but we'd actually went out and found the condom.
He tossed it out the window and you found it?
Yeah, we found the condom. So when he denied even doing it, when we were able to retrieve the condom, he confessed that he did do it, but then he claimed it was consensual, but he'd already been caught lying.
Yeah. Your goal was every kid safe, but no one wrongly accused. With your background, can you tell when some kid's lying? Because that's an awful thing to put on an innocent adult.
Well, I always prayed two things. Before I ever went out every day, I said, Father, let me see everything I need to see to make sure a child's safe, and let me see everything I need to say to make sure that somebody's not wrongly accused. It's very unlikely for a young child to lie. Mm-hmm. Or if they've been told to lie, you'll say, did somebody tell you to say that? Yeah, Mommy did. Or Daddy, or whatever, but that's pretty easy to deal with.
But what about an older child that could be pretty savvy?
A teenager that's been in the system, that knows that you have to be very careful. But that's why, a really good key interview is so important, and you look for corroborating evidence to back it up. I mentioned a case in there where I never went right to the house. I always drove around to kind of see what I could see, and I was going to this one house to interview for something like that, and this young lady came out of the apartment complex next door, and her skirt was all pulled down and her top all up, and she yanked this cigarette out of this guy's mouth and sucked it down and flicked it and flipped off somebody and cussed at him, and she went in the back of the house where I was going. Well, when she came out the other side, she looked like this little angel, and she told me this whole story, and I never let on that I'd seen her, but when I got done, I said, I might have believed you, but I saw you coming out over there, and she said, oh, you saw that, and then she told the truth.
Wow, you do need the wisdom of the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely.
In this.
You should go in there praying every time.
We're getting close to being out of time here. The internet, mothers meeting men and young girls, meeting guys and parents don't know, and that's pretty pervasive today, is it not?
We had a rampant number of cases of people that were registered sex offenders in another state. They'd meet a woman at another state, they would jump state, come over there, hook up with her, and of course they were after the kids all along.
Yeah.
It's
Wake
crazy.
up.
Yeah.
You have a story in here, and you'll have to get the book, okay, of a woman who married a registered sex offender and signed her children over to a guardian. Well, thank God that she got them out there, but she gave up her children for a sex offender.
We've had several cases where women ended up giving up their children for a sex offender.
I've only got 2 minutes. Okay. You were doing a walkthrough through a house, and you insisted on seeing the closet, and you found out that that's where they had kept a child, or?
Yeah, I was actually going through a house, and I was doing my job, and when you're carrying a huge caseload, it's hard to do, but I was checking closets, and I actually found a child that they had hidden in the closet to try to keep me from finding.
Well, I immediately thought of these big cases where the police didn't go in the closets, and girls were abducted and held like slaves and captives for 10 years at a time. Did the police?
I have tremendous support from the police, and I just really valuable to me. And the only thing is, some of those cases, and I don't know all the details, but the only thing I would like to say is, if the state has put somebody in a position where they're carrying a 3 times the workload that anybody could possibly carry, the state has to take responsibility for that too. However, in my case, we got to get back to honor, and you got to stand up and say, this isn't, you got to bring that out if there's a problem.
Go through the closets, all you detectives out there, okay? All right, there's other things here, like church leaders need to know how to recognize child abuse. You need this book. And the website's been up on the screen. We are out of time right now, so stay with me. Have a couple things to say before we have to say goodbye.
Arthelene would like you to keep the following information handy. You may contact Homekeepers by writing P.O. Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida 33758, or go to www.rippy.org. Remember, we always enjoy hearing from our viewers, and we thank you for your support.
What a privilege to bring people to you like Mr. Shelton, because here's someone with a lot of experience that can educate all of us, and I'm so thankful that the Lord sent him our way. And I hope that it was educational to you. Can't get too much education really in these areas, and then the Holy Spirit can prompt you. Maybe you can help save a child. Before we go, I want to again remind you of this petite cross bracelet. You can have it either in gold or silver. Let us know. If you don't tell us, we'll just pick one for you. You can use your credit card by calling 1-800-229-0059 or write to us at Homekeepers, Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida 33758 for that gift of at least $15. We will be glad to get it out to you. Just make sure you say you want the petite cross bracelet, because we do have other types of bracelets that are available, and that will really identify it for us. So I just want to close by saying how much I appreciate all of you out there and those regular folks who stay with us year after year, and you've been faithful to give to the program. That's the only way that we can stay on the air, because as I mentioned earlier, the Lord sends us wonderful guests that can inspire you and encourage you and educate you. And like Dr. Clark, who talks about marriage, and Deborah Ray talks about health. He's given us some wonderful, wonderful people, which I believe with all of my heart, although we don't get that much feedback, but I know that eternity will reveal that a lot of lives and marriages were saved because of Homekeepers. Nothing could be more gratifying, I promise you. Just join me next time, though, remembering there's no higher calling than that of a homekeeper. God bless you.
If you would like a video copy of today's Homekeepers program for just $19.95, call 1-800-229-0059 for credit card orders, or send a gift of at least $19.95 to Homekeepers, P.O. Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida 33758. Be sure to note the program number which appears on your screen.